Hey everybody, it's Kyle from Tavern TCG and Brian from Tavern TCG. Brian,
Yep.
Whew, it's been a long time since you and I got together.
It's been a while, yeah, since after Houston probably.
After you, yeah, sure, it's been a very long time. But anyway, there's a lot of hot topics. People need to know what's going on with Force of Will, and there's been a lot of talk lately about a specific deck. What deck might that be?
This is the 28 Regalia deck.
28 Regalia. So what makes one a 28 Regalia deck?
It has a large amount of Regalia. So the main way that this deck functions is you have a J ruler, you flip your J ruler, and you have a whole bunch of Regalia, and you just pray that your J ruler gets it. Like that's basically what
that's the whole thing.
Yeah, that's the whole shtick.
So anyway, the first thing we hear, because it's very ruler heavy, what we're hearing is, oh, but Blazer just beats this deck immediately.
Yes and no. I'll be going into it in depth later on, but I'm not very convinced that Blazer Deathsight actually solves the issue, because there's ways of getting around it.
Okay, so yeah, we'll talk about that down the line here. First thing I want to ask you about, there's some confusion. What are the main ruler options you have for this kind of deck?
Okay, so the two most common ones that people that really talk about are Melgus and Kane, right? There's a lot of debate as to which one is better. A lot of people think Kane is better because it's a little more resilient to flames, because one Maribel plus Kane means that flames doesn't touch it, whereas Melgus has more OTK potential and is a lot faster and deals a lot more damage as well. Kane is definitely the more conservative approach towards the deck, and Melgus is definitely the more aggressive approach toward the deck.
Okay, so those are the two main ones.
Yeah, those are the two main ones. The third option, I think that a lot of people aren't really talking about, is Arla is actually a very good option as well, because not only does the colors synergize with Percival and Queen's Butler, right? You also get to take full advantage of Artemis as well, because Artemis is significantly weaker in Kane and Melgus, but it's a lot stronger in it's definitely a lot stronger in Arla.
Well, I'm going to ask you here right now, which ruler do you think is the best choice?
Currently, I think that probably Arla is the best because Arla has flying, and also she's one of the 700 ones. If not Arla, then I am definitely a more conservative person and take a more conservative approach. Kane, I think, would be the better choice.
Now, here's the real question, too, because we're talking about Kane, we're talking about Arla, both 700 defense. Well, shoot, we're also talking about Melgus, 500.
500 defense.
Couldn't you just say all of this is countered by Flame of the Outer World?
Yes and no. So the thing about the Flame strategy and the Blazer strategy is that they both get countered by Queen's Butler. So you also need an out to Queen's Butler.
So what does Queen's Butler do?
Queen's Butler gives doesn't allow your J rules to be targeted by spells or abilities. That's what it does.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so it protects your rulers from getting flames or whatnot, so that you can get in for more.
So here's the strategy, just on a high level here, is basically, hey, let's drop Queen's Butler so they can't touch my J ruler.
Right. It's just suiting up your... It literally is just Voltron. You just suit up your J ruler and you just go to town. Like,
so
that's all it is.
Does Queen's Butler protect it from
targeting?
Blazer as well?
Yeah, because Blazer targets.
Anything that targets?
Yeah. So you have to kill the Queen's Butler before you get to Melgus, Kane, or Arla.
So you just gave us an overview of the deck.
Right.
Sounds like it's just really powerful.
Yeah, it's inherently very powerful because there's not a lot of very good answers to J rulers. Like, stuff like Crime and Punishment doesn't really touch it because you can just attack with your guy and then leave your guys up, and then if they Crime and Punishment, you can just pump your Regalia and give it more toughness.
And Crime and Punishment targets.
Crime and Punishment does target?
Bless you, Brian.
Yes.
Clearly there's a very touchy subject for you.
Yeah, I know. It's all good. Anyways, so these are basically the three choices. I think that, let's move on to the Regalia.
Okay.
Because each of these rulers interact differently with the Regalia. So the first one is Leviathan, right? This is pretty self-explanatory. It gives it swiftness so that it attacks the turn that it comes in, right? So it means that you're basically a turn ahead. It also amplifies any amount of damage that Kane, Arla, or Melgus would do. Because they all do damage besides just straight attacking as well. So Kane, you can use its ability to just like shoot off ping off creatures, basically, and you can use this to amplify the damage. Mogus does the same thing as well, but you do have to sacrifice a creature in order to do so.
And we don't like sacrificing creatures.
Yeah. Arla, it's not as common because you have the God's Art Arla, but it's definitely a possibility. But Leviathan is definitely the worst with Arla, and the best with Kane. But it's... That ability is not too relevant unless you're shooting a lot of things down.
Makes sense.
Okay, so next one is Artemis. So Artemis is kind of the reverse. So Artemis is really good with Arla, right?
Right.
And is also very good with Kane, but it's not very good with Melgus.
Interesting.
Yeah. The reason why it's good with Kane is because you can just combo it with Kane in order to, ping something and then deal the rest of the damage with Kane.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So I actually think that in the Kane list and the Melgus list, this card is actually a flex spot. You can actually cut this and play 4 other things.
But if you're playing Arla, this is a done deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Arla is a flying creature, and this deals with like the big flying creatures basically.
Right.
You get to shoot them down, and you get to attack past them.
Okay, absolutely.
Like the thing about these guys is you have the ability to attack, force a guy to block, or if somebody does block, then you shoot the guy behind the. So you shoot the blocker, and then the damage goes completely through. That works with Melgus and Kane, right? It doesn't work with Arla, but Arla doesn't need it because she has flying. So, but even because of that, this is all the more important because this deals with the chump blocking flyers, basically.
Right.
Alright, so Death Scythe basically stops opposing Leviathans, and that's basically what it does in this deck. It also gives your J Ruler plus 200 plus 200. So you actually effectively gives you plus 400 for a turn because you can tap, refresh, then untap again. Like it goes for a lot of these other Regalia as well. It goes for Leviathan, it goes for Death Scythe, it goes for Excalibur Horn. It's basically this. You want to give it power so that you can just deal a lot of damage.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Horn is basically much of the same. You don't really use the shuffling effect all that much, but you definitely use the pumping ability. The pumping ability is just you just want more damage basically. This is all about suiting up your J Ruler and going to town. Excalibur is a bit of the same. The only difference is that Excalibur gives you can sack it to give it your guy imperishable, which is not irrelevant, but it's basically the same as Death Scythe, Horn, and yeah. Basically.
So is that one that's interchangeable as well? Would you say?
Well, yeah. These 3 are all basically interchangeable in your opening hand.
And now, would you say they're interchangeable based on the meta that you're predicting to play against, or is it just personal preference?
Well, if this one's going to be a little bit better. Because if you're playing in the mirror match, for example, then Death Scythe is just like it just buys you an extra turn so that your Leviathan doesn't get in for damage that much.
Okay, so there is some strategy to it. It's not just personal preference.
Kind of. Well, the thing is, like, they're not so much interchangeable. You just want to play 4 copies of all 3, so you want to have critical mass.
Right.
Because if you don't have a critical mass, then you just can't, suit over your guy and just attack because you just won't ever draw.
Right. Because the strategy here is just put as many of these Regalia on the board because they're free.
Right.
And then do as much as you can with your ruler.
Right,
exactly.
exactly.
You choose.
So there's also Gleipnir as well. So Gleipnir is actually very, very good with Kane and Melgus, and to some extent Arla as well. So the way that this works is what you can do is with Kane, you can force the smallest guy to block your Kane, attack, have them block, and then you can just shoot away the guy and basically trample over and deal that damage. With Melgus, it's even better because you can force their biggest guy to block, and then you can sack it away. You can kill it with the God's Art, pumping the Melgus, and just basically OTKing with it. So if they have like something like a Meth or a Weaver, then Gleipnir plus Melgus plus a Leviathan is GG basically. Yeah, it's straight game. And also, what's really good about this is you can discard extra copies of Gleipnir to draw cards as well. And being able to cycle through your deck is really, really important. You only need 1 copy of Gleipnir, so you always want to cycle away that card. The last card is going to be Maribel. And Maribel is really important because Maribel protects you guys from flames. So the most relevant ability is your J Ruler. If your J Ruler would take damage, it takes 200 less instead. So 1 flames would not kill Kane or Arla, and with 2 Maribels, 1 flames would kill Melgus.
Jeez.
So this is your out to your out to flames. Basically.
I'm assuming 4 of those.
Yeah, absolutely. This is also out to Death Scythe as well. So what you can do is you can just sit. So against control, if you're playing against Blazer Death Scythe, what you can do is you can just sit back until you have a critical mask of Maribels, and then on the turn you want to go off, you pop their Death Scythe, and then you just OTK them from there.
My God.
Yeah. So
Brian,
Blazer
this
would
is
not do
degenerate.
anything. Yeah. So Blazer doesn't actually do anything. And worst case scenario, if you don't have the OTK, what you can do is you go Maribel, pop your Death Scythe, make double Queen's Butler, and then attack in, and then they take the damage. They're like, okay, and then they can't flip Blazer anymore.
What is this mirror match like?
I have no clue. I've never played it. I've actually never played with any of these decks, and this is just me spitballing a lot of theory here.
So here's the question, Brian.
Yeah.
So you're playing all these Regalia.
Mm-hmm.
All of this sounds like it's insane.
Right.
I can see why so many people are freaking out about this online,
right.
especially on Facebook. Is this? I hate to even bring up this question, but is this just another? Is this a Bahamut all over? I hate to say it. It kills me.
So
how scared of this are we, or more specifically, how scared of this are you?
I actually think that this deck is honestly fine. I don't think that it's very all in, and there are ways to kind of peel off its defenses and get in at the ruler. So basically,
let's talk about counters.
Okay, well, let's actually talk about the non-Regalia options that you can play as well with the deck.
Okay. There's more than just Regalia?
Yeah, because you were playing 28 Regalia, right? You got 40-card deck.
Right? No Regalia. That's what I say.
We're out.
Oh,
Deep Blue doesn't count.
Shoot, Force of Will, can you print? I need 4 more Regalia.
Right. We're completely out. But, so there's a couple of options that you can play with Regalia. So the first one is very obvious, is Percival, right? Percival's very, very obvious choice.
It searches the frickin' thing.
Yeah. But the thing is, more importantly, it gives you selection. So, for example, if you're going up against the Flames matchup, right? Or the Blazer Death Scythe matchup, you can just look for Maribel, and you're perfectly fine. You just get whatever you're missing, basically. It gives a lot more consistency to the deck. I think that Percival's probably the only required card.
Okay.
And then past that, there's definitely a lot of flex spots. So there's a couple of approaches that you can take towards this deck. So you can try and counter what other people are countering, right? You can just try and draw a whole bunch of cards and hope you get there, or you can just sit and turtle up and hope you get there as well. So those are the 3 basic strats. So for the first one, what was the first strat again? Do you remember?
Brian, I'm not listening. I'm watching you bang the table and shake the camera is what I'm watching.
Sorry. I'm not meaning to.
Everyone's vomiting on their computer.
Everybody at home, I'm really sorry about
seasick.
that. So the first one, that card I want to talk about is Queen's Butler. We mentioned it a little bit before, but Queen's Butler is a very good defense to Flames and Blazer Death Scythe.
And reminder, that's the one that just prevents your ruler, your J ruler from being targeted.
Yes, absolutely. Targeted, period. So by spells or abilities. The reason why I think that this card is definitely main deckable is because, it just straight counters the main counters to the deck, right? So they have to have another option to deal with it as well.
Okay.
Another card is Cheshire Cat. So Cheshire Cat and Guinevere, they both kind of do the same, very, very much the same thing. Basically, they're 1-drops that allow you to draw cards, and they give you a little more card selection. Guinevere, the pros of Guinevere is that you get to draw 2 and discard 1. And that's better than drawing 2 and putting 1 back, because if the card that you see, one of the cards that you want to put back, is not a card that you want to see ever again, it's better to just discard it so that you don't have to draw it the next turn. But the thing about Cheshire Cat is Cheshire Cat stays on the board and allows you to block opposing Melguses, opposing Canes, allows you to more life, buy a little more time.
Yeah, well, people have been talking about that, saying that Cheshire Cat alone is a decent counter to this deck, unless you're playing Arla, is what I take it.
Yes, unless you're playing Arla, or unless you're playing one of the following. I was actually going to jump right into that.
Perfect.
So it's going to be the 3 cards that I'm talking about are Flame King Shout, Zero, and Dark Pulse. And they both do all of the exact same thing. They clear out a whole bunch of weenies so you don't get chopped off forever. Because with Melgus and Kane, what they can do is just have a whole wall of cats, and they just get blocked. You basically just get blocked all day. So if you don't have an out to to wall Cheshire Cats, then you just basically get straight countered by Grim. So Flame King Shout is pretty good because you still stay in red, right? So it doesn't. I mean, you don't get to use the dropping 3 mana guy, but you still get to clear away all of the Cheshire Cats, which is really, really nice. And it allows you to get through as well. 0 is pretty good as well. It requires you to be in black, but it's also a creature out. So stuff like you wouldn't be keeping in Zeeks in this matchup post-board, but you would definitely be keeping in like Absolute Cake Zone or Keen Sense. And 0 dodges Keen Sense and Absolute Cake Zone, which is pretty important. The downside to 0 is it is double black. It is just black in general. So it means that if you want to be playing red for Melgus or Kane, you want to be playing white for Percival and Queen's Butler, then you also have to be playing black for 0, and your mana base gets really, really greedy.
And a split heaven and earth all of a sudden becomes an enemy.
Yes and no. Like, the thing is, like, red doesn't have very good tools by itself to deal with the 28 Regalia deck, so you should be stomping over any red deck anyways. Just if it's just red, right? So you can just you can either Gleipnir the guys and just run into everything, or you can just and basically mow down the creatures. Or if you're like Kane, you could just ping down their guys and then just attack in for game. It's like the mono red deck doesn't really have a way to deal with this. So I wouldn't say that split is an option to deal with the very greedy mana bases if you want to play all of these tech choices. But the deck inherently just gets stomped by the Regalia deck.
So in later rounds, it might not even be an issue dealing with split heaven and earth.
Right. Because you could just kill them before they can kill you with split, and you can also just stop making stones.
Yeah,
that's another counter to split. It's just why not? Why don't we just not make stones?
Right. Yeah, especially when all the Regalia are free. Right.
So Melgus doesn't really get hit by it. Kane might eventually, but the thing is, Kane should be able to mow down your guys quick enough and just get in for damage. So there is that. Let me think about. Oh, right. And the fourth one is Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse is very similar to. It's very similar to 0, but it kills. So the thing about 0 is 0 can get countered by stuff like Realm of Evolution and Shangri-La, just basically the field addition fields that pump the toughness of Cheshire Cat.
Right.
And because you pump the toughness, then the 0 can't get past it. But Dark Pulse gets around that completely. But the thing about Shangri-La and Realm of Evolution is Artemis still is able to pop Shangri-La and Realm of Evolution. So there are ways to get around, a bigger Cheshire Cat. Because you can just pop the thing and then just 0 the guy's away and attack him for game.
Right, yeah.
Right. But Dark Pulse, you don't have to. You can not play Artemis. But the problem with Dark Pulse is it's also 4 mana. It's very, very slow. Yeah. It's better in Kane sort of build probably because you'll be getting a lot more mana as time goes on. Yeah. But it's still, turn 5 at the earliest that you're going to see it.
Okay, so let's talk about the most important thing to me and everyone else watching this. How do we beat it?
Okay.
So that's the most important thing. That's what everyone wants to know is how are you going to be able to beat this deck the way it is?
Okay, so the first way is to I've already mentioned both of the counters. Actually, there are 3 real counters. So the first one is going to be Flames, right? Flames plus Maribel. Because the way that they block Flames is they block Flames with their own Maribel as well, or Queen's Butler.
Right.
So if you can out their protections, then Flames the guy, then that's an auto win, basically. If you ever land a lethal Flames on the J Ruler, it's straight game.
Because they have no other win condition.
Right. They have no other win condition. They can't win any other way. So that is the cleanest and probably the easiest and best way to do it. Doing it, on the other hand, is very tough because basically you have to draw more splits, draw more Regalia, Maribels than your opponent, basically. You also have to have an out for Queen's Butler as well.
Jeez.
Right. So, but the good thing about it is, you have to. I mean, it's not the good thing. It's actually a bad thing. Because you actually have to wait until their shields are down in order for them to do it.
So when they commit, if they don't kill you, you could potentially counter with a Maribel Flames and then cut them off at the raise.
Yeah, so basically whenever they flip their J ruler, then their guy is vulnerable.
Okay.
Second thing is, and also another bad thing about flames is you have to take a hit, or you have to stop the first attack.
Right.
So yeah, you have to do it through like Death Scythe or whatever.
Right.
So the second counter is Blazer Death Scythe, right? That's what everybody thinks.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is the Blazer Death Scythe doesn't really work unless you have a lot of pressure to go with it as well. Because what they can do is they can just sit back, pile up a whole bunch of Regalia, and then have a turn where they have a Maribel for your Death Scythe, and then Queen's Butler to protect it, and then just get in for a ton of damage. And if you can't stop both of the combo, then you're just dead.
Right.
Right. So there is that. You can just sit back and hold back, and then just go all in. So Blazer Death Scythe isn't a counter, but Blazer Death Scythe plus pressure is a counter. All right. The third counter is Cheshire Cat chumps. But things like a lot of decks are already shifting towards being able to deal with it with like flames and not flames, Flame King Shout and Zero and Dark Pulse as well. So it's good for the first couple of turns to block some damage, but it's not a long term strat. You have to have a long term way of dealing with the J ruler as well. So the ideal deck would be a deck that can best use all three in conjunction, but maybe not Cheshire Cat if you're planning to face against Arla. But I think the Arla deck is probably really, really good.
Shoot, so it sounds like we gotta get creative.
Oh yeah, no, you definitely have to get creative because you have to answer the threat of the Jailer Ruler in a timely manner. So you can't just like Dirtle or whatever because you will get killed. So you can't do something cheesy like put a Protection of Seraph onto a Meph and have it be your game plan.
What? What do you mean?
Yeah, or like, and then using Bind of Gravity to like OTK. So you just don't have enough time to do all that
Couldn't
stuff.
you just race them? I don't see why Baja Blast is an option here.
You can race them, but the thing is, Kane just straight up races that possibility. Like, if you're playing Kane, then Kane just like mows over all the guys, and then you have no pressure, and he has just all day to smack you in.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a tough question, right? Like, because everyone's looking at this and they're thinking it's a huge problem, and I know there's been a lot of talk about this just being poor design from the game itself.
It is poor design for the game. I think that Regalias are pretty unhealthy. I am definitely in agreement of that. It's because they don't cost anything is the main thing, and there's no real good answer to them currently as well. Right.
So we're going to have to get creative. What do you think? Is this going to be... Obviously, we have ARG this weekend. We're going to see a ton of this. The person who wins the whole thing, the person who does the best, or do you think if there's enough turnout for this 28 Regalia deck that it's going to sweep the entire event? Or is there a potential that there's something better out there?
So the thing about this deck is the deck is a little slower. It's definitely not Baja Blast fast. Right. So it doesn't kill you on 3. It doesn't give you very little time. Because the thing is, like, not only did Baja Blast not have an answer to... there were no answers to fight against Baja Blast.
Right.
But also the time period in which that you can act is very, very small. But in this sort of deck, the window for them to win is anywhere from turn 3 to turn 6, right? Usually it's around... If they're lucky, it's turn 3.
So I'm just going to spitball a little bit with you here.
Sure.
What it sounds like to me, the expert on this side of the camera, is what people should be thinking of if they're planning on playing against this deck and actually trying to counter it, is they need to be patiently waiting for a time for the opponent to go all in and be able to strongly counter that onslaught.
Yes and no. So the thing is, like, the main thing that I think, the best way I think to deal with it is flames, right?
Right.
And so it's really dependent on how many Maribels your opponent opens, right? But the problem with that is the more Maribels your opponent opens, the slower that they can kill you. Because Maribels don't pump at all. So if you have more time, then you have more time to deal with the Maribels. You have more time to maybe get to the point where you can double flames, right? And kill their Maribel. So the more time you have, the better, basically. is.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. So you just want, I don't know, man. You want things to go your way.
Yeah. Like, another thing that I forgot to mention beforehand was that Kane gives you a little bit more speed because you flip on 1. And Melgus and Arlo flip on 2. So that's another thing to consider as well. Is that it just gives you an extra turn to get in and deal more damage.
Yeah, man, it's going to be tough. It's going to be an interesting meta. I mean, what do you think? Is this your deck of choice, or are you brewing something special?
I'm going to say that I'm going to try and brew something special.
What do you mean try, Brian?
I'm working on something for now. Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of other takes as well. I've seen the whole, basically the deck where it just jams all 3 of those concepts together and calls it a day.
Right.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, I have cats, I have flames, I have Maribels, I have Blazer, I have Death Sign.
Come at me, bro.
Come at me, you know? Like, I'm good, right?
Right.
Or, and then playing stuff like Alice's Soldier, where, like, it's like, gets around 0, you know? But at the same time, it doesn't really account for everything, because it still can, like, Arla is still a threat.
Yeah, I mean, what is good, though, is I think we're in a similar position, at least right now, this early in the meta, as it starts to shape, that we're saying, hey, this is a 28 Regalia deck, this is the enemy. This is the same thing that happened with Baja Blast. Yeah. And, I mean, you thought of a way to beat Baja Blast. So we have one big enemy, we're just all putting our heads together and trying to beat it, right? Yeah,
well, the thing is, like, I honestly don't think, I think that how strong this deck has been blown out of proportion by certain people. I'm not going to name names, but
it's been blown out of proportion.
It's been blown out of proportion, basically. And there's definitely a lot of clunkiness to the deck, right? So whenever there's clunkiness, that means that the deck isn't as competitive. And it's not saying that this deck isn't competitive, but you lose a lot of competitiveness when you lose consistency.
Right.
Because I was opening some hands today, and I was just like drawing like triple Maribel and drawing no pumpers and all like utility dudes or whatever, and I just like wasn't getting there, and it was just a lot slower. So like the miracle draw of winning on turn 3, winning on turn 4 is not as realistic if somebody is prepared to go up against this deck. So I think that this deck is a very good noob crusher for sure. If anybody gets offended by that, I apologize.
So this is what we're going to see. We're going to see this thing kind of be the bad guy for a little bit. Then we're going to figure out how to beat it. You think it's going to just split into a 3-deck format?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, I think this deck is beatable as long as you're prepared for it and you're ready for it. If you're not ready for it, then you're just going to get rolled by it. I think it's more akin to, like, Dredge and Magic, where if you don't pack hate for it, you're just going to die to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, tell us what you guys think. Shoot us, comments below.
Yeah.
I'm curious what everyone's thinking about this thing. I know there's a bunch of mixed views on it, so let us know in the comments. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. If you haven't liked us on Facebook, do that. Check out the website. Brian, thank you for your time. You guys might have heard them. We're gonna go walk my dogs now.
Yeah, I got a little bit distracted the whole entire time. Sometimes you see me looking down and it's just like the dogs are there.
Yeah, I have very cute dogs, and then we're gonna test. They're eating his backpack. All right.
Yeah, they are actually eating my backpack.
All right,
they're chewing on it.
All right, everyone, have a good one. We'll talk to you soon. Tavern out.